hanger then. Like if he was like, I'm your father, he falls off the thing, and then they just fade to black. That's a cliffhanger.
Wow.
You know what?
Wow.
I have nothing for you. I got nothing. Yeah, John, I don't even know.
I like how Andre's just quietly in the background, just like the rage.
You know what it is? No, it's not.
He's gonna punch through a
wall.
wall.
It's pure disappointment. That's what that look on Andre's. It's like I'm not mad at you, and I'm not angry.
I didn't see it in theaters. I didn't see it in theaters though. So I think I had access to all 3 movies. Bang, bang, bang. So it didn't. I guess it didn't feel like a cliffhanger. I don't know.
Speechless.
For those who are watching, wondering what the hell we're talking about,
cliffhanger.
We're debating the fact that John doesn't understand that Empire Strikes Back ends on a cliffhanger, and he's adamant that it doesn't.
I don't know if he's adamant. He's got a point. There's 2 different types of cliffhangers, right? There's the cliffhanger that leads into another story, right?
Yeah, I feel like it was not like
this is, but then there's the cliffhanger where it literally stops. Like if you were to look at the end of Matrix 2, where Neo falls down, and and then they cut to black. That's a cliffhanger. You're like, oh shit, I don't know what's going to happen. They just stop it. But there's a lot of points in movies or TV shows where the ending, there's more to come, but they don't leave you like dangling off the cliff. That's the cliffhanger. The definition is leaving you hanging, without knowing if you're gonna drop. Whereas this one, Empire sets up, that there's a next one, so it's a continuation.
I'm pretty sure the closing scene is Luke and C-3PO looking out the window into the stars, and it fades. It's not like something like someone dies and then they go fade to black.
Yeah.
What you didn't know is that the rebel guards were being killed by Vader on the off screen. You could just hear them.
Yeah, apparently.
Sounds in the background of a lightsaber.
Unbeknownst to us.
Can we all just say now that the use of the word cliffhanger has now made me want to go and watch Sylvester Stallone's 1992 cliffhanger?
God bless John Lithgow, the best part of that movie. I will debate or fight any of you who doesn't love John Lithgow. John Lithgow is the best in that movie. As well as Yondu has a fun little role in that one too.
Do you remember Ace Ventura? They had a scene with a raccoon. There was cliffhanger, and the raccoon falls and disappears.
I don't remember Ace Ventura that much, but
yeah, I think it was from the second one. I don't think anyone remembers that.
That's it. All right, welcome to the Heroes World Quarantine podcast. That was shenanigans at the front of it. We are here to do our review of Black Widow, just recently released on Disney Plus, as well on movie theaters. So if you were lucky enough in America to watch the theater, God bless. Canadians, we're probably all watching at home. It will be in the theaters out in a week, 2 weeks soon. So before we go into it, we're just going to do our brief non-spoiler review of the movie. John has the freshest person who watched this movie. So John, give us a non-spoiler synopsis of the film without any positive or negative adjectives.
Okay, so I managed to squeeze in the movie right before we did this last night. Wow. So I already forgot what happened. No, so Natasha Romanoff, who we last saw in Avengers Endgame. Spoilers for, can we talk about Endgame? What happened to her?
Yes,
or not
you're
really?
fine.
Yeah, Endgame.
Spoilers for Endgame. She sacrificed herself at the end of that movie. So we have a movie that is out of continuity. It's jumping back between, I think, Civil War, right after Civil War, I believe. Right before Avengers Infinity and whatever movies came after Civil War. And we basically get to peek into her past, what she was doing on the run from, I guess, the government when they were trying to shut down all the superheroes who didn't register or didn't go Team Iron Man. And we get a peek into her past, her family, her upbringing, and we get to see a whole bunch of new villains and some new characters that we might see. I don't know if I can do anything else without getting into spoilers.
That's fine.
Well, you can get into whatever's been in the trailers. I'm sure you're able to touch on.
Well, some people didn't see the trailers, Rob. Like, you refuse to watch trailers now. So
there's a family element similar to Fast and the Furious. I would.
These trailers have been out for 2 years. I'm sure you're all right.
Wait.
Maybe you forgot. Maybe you watched it and forgot.
That Vin Diesel walks in the table and says, "My familia," and you're like, "Ah, right. This is all about family."
My family.
Family. Familia. So
Stallone in Fast and the Furious 10 coming soon.
Yeah. This is the nature of it.
You know what? You just watch. Stallone will be Vin Diesel's father in Fast and Furious 10.
No.
He survived the crash.
Stallone wouldn't die. Stallone wouldn't die. Anyways, so again, I was gonna do the hosting stuff. Anyways, so again, I am Stupe, your host. With me is Andre and John, the owners and proprietors of Heroes World. Say hello.
Hello, folks.
And John, great. Thank you very much. And Rob, good dad. Say hello.
Hello.
So that was our little brief intro. So John, tell us what you liked and didn't like about Black Widow. Non-spoilers, acting performances. Tell me what you liked.
So Black Widow, what did I like? I actually overall liked almost pretty much all the cast. I'm trying to think if there was anyone that I really didn't like in this movie. In particular, I think we're going to get into it more, but Yelena, what's her name? Florence Pugh?
Yep.
Pugh? Yeah.
Pew.
I really liked her performance. And even, I don't know who played Red Guardian. He looks very familiar.
David Harbour.
That'd be David Harbour from Stranger Things.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And also Hellboy.
Oh,
Hellboy.
boy. Yeah, Hellboy.
The new Hellboy, right?
The new Hellboy. Yeah.
Okay, nobody watched that, so don't worry about that, folks.
Agreed. No one watched that one.
But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the film. Definitely could have benefited from coming out about a year ago. So the unfortunate circumstances pushed this way back. And yeah, I think that's all I can say without delving into spoiler territory.
Rob.
Yeah, I got like a whole bunch of notes here on this movie.
We'll get to it. Yeah.
And so I'm gonna do my best for those who haven't seen the movie yet. This is like I guess as Stu has said, like our non-spoiler review. But I'm gonna give you an objective understanding. Is in Canada and in Ontario, as Stu said, our theaters are not open. So we have access to Disney Plus Premium. If you are a Disney Plus subscriber, you have to pay $35 plus your tax. It comes out to just shy of $40. Is this movie worth your $40, or do you want to wait until October when it premieres on Disney Plus normally for free, as long as you've got your membership? That's, I think, the inherent question that we kind of need to ask. And you need to ask yourself, is this worth it? Because if you go to the theater, if they're open, on the average, it's two people who are going to the theater. Does it make up that $40? I'm having the struggle of trying to determine whether or not this movie was worth my $40 investment, because now I quote own this as long as I have my Disney Plus subscription. And I'm not necessarily sure I'm there. I don't know if it's worth it. I will say that I watched the movie
for a family of four that you would have.
Well, but on the average, most people, it's usually two people who go to a theater at a time. It's not necessarily a family of four. We always used a family of four as an idea. Like I know our friend Scott down in the US, it was a family of four. They went to the theater. Great. I think I probably would have enjoyed this movie more had I seen it in the theater as opposed to watching it at home. That being said, I watched it last night like John did. In reflection of it this morning, I think I need to see the movie again. I've come out to the fact that I did enjoy the movie for what it was. I have some issues with it. However, if you're an action fan, if you're a fan of the Bourne Identity movies, if you're a fan of action, like good fight scenes, I think you will really enjoy this. If you're looking for this to have some type of the Marvel to be akin to a Winter Soldier movie, it's a bit of a pale comparison to that. I don't think that you will be rewarded as you have been in other Marvel movies. I think this is part of the problem when you have a prequel movie where the stakes don't really mean a lot for the main character because you know what the eventual outcome is. There is a lot of humor in this movie, which I was actually pleasantly surprised with. I'm going to give a big shout out to the stunt team in this movie. And obviously most of them were stunt women. Phenomenal. Like if I'm telling you as a viewer that this is akin to like a Bourne Identity or the Bourne trilogy movies, I'm not going to talk about the other two. That's high praise. I hold those movies and their fight choreography in high regard of close combat fighting, and they kind of matched what they did in those Bourne movies. So I think it's a big shout out to those stunt women who worked, and because that fight choreography is something to be, you could just rewind and keep watching those fight scenes. If you're a Bond fan, you might find a little bit of this movie that you might enjoy. At the end of the day, we've always talked about how Captain America: The Winter Soldier is an espionage movie that just happens to feature a character who has a costume, right? It's a good espionage movie. This is not a good espionage movie. This is a decent action movie that happens to star Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson. So I'm going to circle back. Is it worth your $40 investment? And if you are kind of on the fence and not really, like, you don't care about continuity and not being a completionist at this time, I would suggest waiting until October when it drops on Disney Plus if you are a subscriber. If you are clamoring for some Marvel stuff because you can't wait until September for Shang-Chi to drop, or the Eternals in November, then go ahead and drop your $40 now. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andre?
I think Rob raised like the biggest point. I think it's worth the $40 if you're gonna watch it with two people and you have a half decent setup to watch. Like if you have any type of sound bar, surround sound, and anything that's a 4K TV or 46-inch TV and above, and you're looking for something to do, I think it's worth it. You know, if you're only by yourself, you know, maybe it isn't worth the $40, or maybe you just wait a week till you can go to the theater. You know, I think Rob said, I think this might have done a little bit better for the theater. I think overall, the movie delivers what it shows you it was going to deliver in the trailers and stuff. And unfortunately, we've had a year and a bit of seeing them. It's not Marvel's best offering, and it's not Marvel's worst offering. I'm going to unfortunately disagree with Rob about the comparisons to The Bourne. I've seen a lot of people making it. The fight choreography is not there. It's good, but it's not there. It's not visceral. It's not it's not impactful. There's a lot of swinging around people, like her signature move. Like I guess that's the Widow trait, is you scale somebody and you flip them like it you know. But we'll get into that later. I did enjoy parts of the movie, and I will say Marvel does a really obvious thing, and I think they, for me anyways, it's they pull a fast one on you. They did it in Guardians of the Galaxy. They do it in this one. The beginning of the movie, like the kind of this interludes, this very serious thing, and you're like, holy crap, this is really cool. I'm down with this. And then it kind of flips the switch, like once the movie starts, and you're like, oh, they're not taking their material seriously, or this is a very serious subject matter, which they're coding with bubbly comedic moments and stuff. I think that to me is what ultimately I would say will hurt this movie. Is this should have been Marvel's spy espionage movie that could have been up there with Winter Soldier. I don't want to say it should have topped Winter Soldier, but again, knowing that they had already made Winter Soldier, they should have been like, hey, this is the spy character. You know, and if you look at Scarlett Johansson's performance in Winter Soldier, you know, I think she's got the acting chops to pull off that serious role, and stuff. And it's not that I had a preconceived notion that it was going to be, because we all know here that Winter Soldier is up there for me as what Marvel can do. I just want them to flex their muscles and do it again. And I think this story could have been that. And I'll go into that a little bit more once we get into spoilers.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think I've heard a lot of people say this movie is more of a baton handoff, as we've discussed before, in a race. Black Widow is just handing the baton to basically a bunch of characters, world building to carry off the title of Black Widow and the story itself, rather than focusing on her, because this is Scarlett Johansson's last movie. So a lot of this is about world building, you just didn't know till the end of the movie. You're like, oh, I watched this whole movie and it's just passing off batons to a bunch of other characters and like setting up stuff for new movies. So they've kind of walked tippy-toed the balance of it. We'll go in the spoiler talk. We'll discuss whether this is the beginning of the race or the end of the race. Who knows? Maybe is it Andre passing the baton? Is it Rob passing the baton? You'll find out soon. Or whether they dropped it. Good point. So, what do you, from your point, John? What do you rate this out of 10?
I'd give it an 8.
Rob?
Yeah, this is I know it's supposed to be a really easy answer because last night I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to rate it, and thinking about it this morning, I got to rewatch it again. I'm going to go with a solid 7.5 with the potential of an 8.
Andre?
I'd probably say 6.5, 7 maybe.
And then my last follow-up question, John, is this a movie you can bring with your spouse, significant other, or someone who doesn't watch comic book movies? Is this a one you could bring a normie to? If you went to the theaters, if you had a date night, would this be the movie you'd go to? Could you bring a person with you that doesn't know anything about Marvel? Or is it too Marvel focused that they...
I think we're going to get into the spoilers. I think a part of it could have potentially been that movie, but I think they take a turn, like Andre says, that makes it not really accessible to someone who hasn't watched all these Marvel movies. So I would say not really. I think you need some of the history.
Rob?
No, I'll slightly disagree with John a little bit. I think that you can take. I think that if you're taking what you like to call a normal person to the theater or to watching on TV, that you could just easily fill them in. I'll put it this: my son and I watched it last night. My daughter joined us, and I said this before, she is not a movie person. She made it into an hour into the movie, but then she was just way too tired. But has asked me last night and then again this morning if we can continue watching it. So for me, she's not a Marvel person. She doesn't watch any of these movies, but she's pretty stoked to kind of continue watching it. So for that aspect, in that regard, I think you can take a normie to see the movie.
Nice. Andre?
Yeah, I think you can. I think one of the reasons you can do it is because they didn't really, in my opinion, connected actually that much to the Marvel movie, other than the mention of the Sokovia Accord and stuff like that, and whatever, and that's just a 2-liner. I think all you'd have to explain to the person is, oh, this is Black Widow, and she was an Avenger, and this is what happened in that. So I think it's way more accessible than, say, taking back in the day when the X-Files movie came out, taking someone to see that if they didn't watch the X-Files. No, that's the worst one to go through. But this one, I think you could, definitely chew some popcorn, or just watch with almost anybody. Yeah.
Especially when you see Locke in the first part of that movie, you're like, there's the guy I know from Lost. Anyways, so we're gonna wrap things up before we go with full spoilers. John, Andre, where can they find you guys on the internet in the desert of the real?
Yeah, so Heroes World Online will pretty much take you to all of our social media platforms, our YouTube, our Facebook, our Instagram, our new Twitch rebranded channel. So if you are following us there, get all the latest deals. The Facebook is definitely the most active and most constantly updated. But if you are on the Instagram, we also do share a lot of the stories and other kind of fun stuff there. And that'll all drive you back to the website where you can ask any question you want via email, via the social media. You can definitely contact us when we're pretty responsive. So if we don't get back to you right away, definitely give us an extra poke just in case we might have missed that message. And then if you're listening on the audio, Heroes World Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, you can listen to us on the go. So if you're on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating if you feel so inclined, and give us a quick review. It definitely helps us out and gets us out on the radar. And thank you everybody, of course, for sharing, liking, and I especially love the Instagram stories of people telling us whatever they got has kind of sparked a little bit of enjoyment in their day, in their life. I saw a meme the other day that says money can't buy happiness, and then it says unless you've been to the right hobby store or whatever. We like to think that we can give you a little bit of that happiness, and also you can always come in and just be a part of the Heroes World family. So it's always fun to just see everybody. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, no Corona required. That's just a caveat. Andre?
So our brick and mortar store has been back open, and we're really excited that we'll be hitting phase 3 in Ontario on the 16th, which will allow for more people in the store. But again, we're still going to have all the safety measures in place. So if you are in our neck of the woods, we are conveniently located at 8601 Warden Avenue, and that's Warden and Highway 7. If you're, which is just outside the GTA. So if you want to come up and visit us, we're pretty much just north of Steeles, or you can come up, take the 401 to the 404 and get off at Highway 7 and cut across. Really easy to get to, lots of parking and lots of stuff in store for you to see. Our website just has a fraction of our items. We're constantly updating it, but there's way more in store. And the best part is you get this type of conversation in the store with not just John or myself, but the other people. Like, everybody's really friendly. We've got a great community, and a lot of people are slowly coming back and feeling that sense of safety and security to be able to just be in the store. And it's cool because we've been cooped up for so long. You'll just see people that don't know each other talking about, what they're looking at, or what, so many times people have been just say, hey, oh, have you read that comic? Or, hey, have you read this? And you see these conversations, and I'm not even part of it. So it's really good. So definitely come check us out if you're in our neck of the woods.
Awesome. Rob?
Hey, yeah. So, I understand this is a non-spoiler review. So if you've stumbled onto this review and you've never seen any of the content before, I would recommend, going back and checking this out. Also, I'd recommend tomorrow, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we do the Heroes World Sidekick Show, where John and I, we talk about some stuff in the news, what's new in the store, and then we usually do a review or some talking about movies. And tomorrow's going to be an interesting one because we are actually doing a bit of a deep dive into the career of Richard Donner, who had passed away last week at the age of 91. But he's the prototype. We don't get any of these Marvel movies without Superman, the movie from 1978. You might be thinking, wait, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to explain why that is. We're also going to explain every other movie that you've practically seen throughout your lifetime has some type of a connective thread to what Richard Donner directed from the 80s and 90s. So definitely tune in tomorrow, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, live on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. If you join the YouTube channel, there's a lot of conversation, discussion. So we definitely welcome new people to come in all the time. We seem to be getting some new faces joining each week. So definitely join us there.
Awesome. So thank you for those who have joined us for this portion of it. Like, subscribe, all the things that John mentioned, comment of your thoughts, and hopefully we'll see you all again in part 2, which is our full spoiler review. So again, please, as a gentle reminder, to support your local stores. If you can do it in any capacity, any purchase, any small thing, whatever it is, they will appreciate it. And everyone in small business will appreciate your small transaction, regardless of how big or whatever that transaction is. So be safe. Thank you all. See you later.
Thank you.
All right. So for those who are still here for the spoilers, here we go. We're going to go straight into it. John, what did you like? What you didn't like? Full up, go into it.
Okay. So yeah, I previously, if you've watched the beginning portion, I don't know if we're going to split this up or not. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I am mostly giving it that because of the likability of this cast. So a couple of the gentlemen below me, or I don't know where they are on the screen, I've mentioned seeing this
above
in theater.
you.
Yeah, above, below. I don't know where the hell everybody is. But I definitely 100% probably would have enjoyed this movie more if I saw it in theaters, and probably would have boosted it to a 9, or I might have even given it a 10 out of 10, because just the movie theater experience, I really miss that experience. So shout outs to the theaters if they're going to be opening soon. I definitely want to be able to do that again. But I think I'll start with the negative things first before I roll into what I liked about the film, just because I don't want to end on a negative note, because this is Scarjo's moment to shine. She has put in the work. She has been in as many Marvel movies, I think now with the release of Black Widow, probably as Robert Downey Jr., possibly more, but I think it's very close. I'd have to do a recount. But the movie, it definitely got hurt by being held back. It's about a year. I think it was supposed to be out last year, May or something like that, along those lines. So it doesn't quite have. We've had 2 seasons of Marvel. Like, we're on the 3rd season of Loki, so it's kind of like trying to catch up almost. So I think it would have definitely hit harder if it got released. But what can we do about that? But the movie, it starts off. I feel like it starts off really strong. The whole espionage element, the Bourne identity kind of like hits and all that kind of stuff. And then Andre puts it, I don't know if this is the same point you're thinking, Andre, but I think at the point, I think it's the prison break when things kind of start blowing up and going too crazy, that goes like really over the top, superhero, unbelievable kind of stuff, and it kind of keeps going on that tone, even though they did. I like the whole siege on the whatever the what's it called, red room or whatever, in another aircraft in the air or whatever. The whole siege, the whole plan on that, I thought was pretty cool. But it was a little bit started to get a little bit crazy, and then you're obviously going to have a USB stick stealing information again. I feel like they really got to get away from stuff like that. And the bad guy definitely did a little too much monologuing, and got to like just talk way too much. And I'm like, come on, I want to see more of this other stuff, which will now flip me to what I really enjoyed. So the cast, I really enjoyed the entire cast. Scarlett Johansson, I think she really got to kind of go through a bunch of different things. She got to do comedy, she got to do serious stuff, she got to do action, and then add to that element the kind of the baton handoff, which I guess the guys are talking about, with is the Yelena character who I forgot her name already, Flora Pugh or whatever. Florence Pugh. Yeah. So the handoff to that character, or just the addition of that character, definitely I could have used another 20-30 minutes of that character. But the movie, I think, was already over 2 hours, right? If I'm not mistaken. And obviously it is not her movie. This is Scarlett Johansson's movie. So the fact that we even got some of these other characters in there, but I really did want to see a little bit more of the other character. My favorite part, are we gonna go do favorite scenes later, or
no, it's just whatever you want. It's fine.
Yeah. So Rob mentioned a lot of the action choreography. The fight between her and the sister, I think, was probably one of the highlight fights, and that is the closest they got to being as visceral, I guess, as Andre would say, to the Bourne Identity stuff. They were flinging each other into cabinets and destroying that. I guess it was Black Widow's old apartment or something like that.
Yeah.
Safe house, Budapest.
Yeah. It was some random safe house, but I really like that scene. And I like the comedy elements that Yelena added on, like the whole kind of making fun of the superhero landing that ScarJo does. That was absolutely hilarious. And then I did like, I think at one point during interviews they've talked about how Black Widow was like a chameleon, like how I like how she had all these different costumes. And at first you watch the trailers, you're like, what's with this white costume? But they did go to like a snowy area, so the white costume, quote unquote, makes sense. And then even when she's wearing her civilian outfits and stuff like that. So shout outs to Scarlett, or whoever the costume designer was, for making her always look really good. But yeah, I just wanted more of the first half of the movie rather than the last half. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
No, I think we talked about this before recording, is that the first act, that's all the movie I really wanted. The third act was a complete gong show. Like, if you just did the first act itself, it was tremendous. Rob talked before, they did the whole, living in a trailer via Riggs or Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I could just watch Scarlett Johansson sit in that room. And I'm sure Rob also enjoyed the fact that she's watching a Bond movie and just saying all the lines over. So Rob was probably screaming of giddy. Meanwhile, both his kids are like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" It's like, it's Moonraker.
That's right. Yeah.
So there were things happening in the beginning of the movie that I really enjoyed, and then, yeah, to your point, it kind of gets off the rails very quick.
Yeah, and some of the family elements that kind of started popping up later was a neat.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question. What
Yep.
was your opinion of Evers Anderson as the young Black Widow? This is everything you would hope for in an actress. She is the daughter of Mila Jovovich. She is the daughter of
Paul Anderson.
Paul Anderson. So this is the action star of the future. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was neat. They didn't get to do a ton other than some really kind of like gut-wrenching scenes of them being separated and stuff like that. But then later on, you learned that they were kind of only together for 3 years. But I guess the 3 years meant a lot to them. But yeah, I thought she had a good look, and it was kind of neat that she had like a little bit of the hair dye, so you kind of see why she has like the shock of red hair or whatever she likes to do to her hair, because it's part of like kind of when she was growing up. It's like kind of her thing. So yeah, it was nice to see those two young ladies, and then yeah.
All right, Rob, tell us your thoughts, what you like, what you didn't like, performances.
Yeah, so I got a bit of notes here.
I like that you took notes, Rob.
Well, you know what? They're not linear.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of all over the place. I'm going to go back. I'm going to make the assumption.
Here we go.
I'm going to make the assumption that people haven't seen our non-spoiler review. And so I'm just going to quickly summarize the fact that the preface of my understanding of this movie is this worth the $40 in Canada for Disney Plus? So with that being said, here's some things that I realized off the bat. One, I prefer the Marvel movie logo introduction for movies. I realized this was playing that, having seen it in every episode of WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and now Loki, I'm actually kind of irritated. Like, I feel like they should have their own logo introduction for those TV shows. I feel like they should be leaving the cinematic logos and introductions strictly for movies. I don't know. That's just
connected, Rob. You can't separate.
But I don't like it. Number two, what's with all the purple? No, just kidding. Not a fan of Nirvana cover songs. Although I will say that this one was done by Think Up Anger featuring Malia J. Great rendition of Smell Like Teen Spirit. But for me, I'm a Nirvana fan. I was like, oh, come on, man. Wait, why not just use the actual song? It was 1995 in Ohio, man. Like, this is the height of Nirvana at any rate in the mid 90s. Why are you using a cover song of a like, it makes no sense to me. Just use the actual stupid song. You've obviously got the rights to it since you're doing a cover of it. So I didn't quite appreciate that. The beginning part in Ohio is very reminiscent of The Americans. If you are a fan of the TV show The Americans, it actually made me.
Yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this part.
I only got to see like season 1, and I'm season 2. So I actually now need to go back and kind of finish that series. And this is what
shout out Margot Martindale. She's incredible.
Right. So this kind of spurred I was like, oh shit, I got to go back and rewatch and finish The Americans off, because I really enjoyed that. I felt like that was an interesting shout out. I talked about in the non-spoiler review that I felt like the fight choreography that John mentioned is very reminiscent of the Bourne movies, especially in the apartment, just like we saw in the Bourne Identity in the apartment. This movie has a lot of connective threads to other movies, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I want to do a shout out to the stunt women in this, because I thought that the fight scenes were just phenomenal. The action scenes really throughout the entire movie, it highlights, I think it's an important movie for women and for girls watching it, for obvious reasons. But to see that, some of these fight scenes were way better than other ones that we've seen with a bunch of hulky dudes. I wanted more of Taskmaster. I was really disappointed with what they did with Taskmaster. I was actually disappointed in the fact that they didn't really explain that Taskmaster learns and adapts to the fighting. It was such a throwaway line when they did mention it. I actually had to stop the movie, and at this point, I think my daughter had gone to bed, and I had to explain to my son like what Taskmaster does, because he doesn't know who Taskmaster is, and was kind of like, well, I don't understand why. So I had to explain what his power set was and how to remind him there was a much better version of Taskmaster in the Sony Spider-Man game from 2018. I wasn't a big fan of Florence Pugh's Yelena at the beginning. I got to be honest with you. I kind of found her to be a bit irritating. She definitely grew on me a little bit later. I like the fact that she was calling out Black Widow for her hero posing. And then when she tried to do it at the end, I thought it was like really funny. And she's like, oh my God, I'm such a poser. So I thought it was kind of funny knowing that the future of the Black Widow character now rests on her shoulders. Had me a little bit concerned. I'm not necessarily convinced going forward that she could integrate into the Avengers as seamlessly as Scarlett Johansson has done. So I would be very interested to find out how that goes. David Harbour as Red Guardian. I thought he was really funny. It reminded me, him in trying to put on his suit again was very much akin to the Incredibles, right? Where Mr. Incredible is trying to put his suit on. He can't. He's trying to squeeze in, especially the whole scene. Like, there's a lot in this movie that are taken from other movies. The scene of him trying to buckle up his pants is right from, the Incredibles. So I thought that was pretty funny. I started laughing at Cloud City. I thought, oh, I'm sure Andre's going to love this. I was waiting for Lando Calrissian to show up. I thought, wait a minute, you got a floating cloud in the sky and S.H.I.E.L.D. and nobody has been able to detect this. Also, how do you stop commercial?
Because all the helicarriers fell out of the sky already.
And how do you stop commercial airliners from accidentally hitting it or being told to redirect themselves? So that was a little bit weird. yes, Stu, I was a big fan of seeing Moonraker on the TV while she was in her trailer. And I said this earlier, that this does have a little bit of a Bond feel. And so I was kind of glad. I mean, there is some interesting parallels between the final scene in Bond of the skydiving scene and this skydiving ending as well, intentionally or not. But there is, and I think it just goes back to that this movie seems to pull a lot out from other movies or TV shows. And I've obviously named a few of them here. Who's the dude helping Black Widow? What was his purpose? I don't really get it. I mean, he shows up a couple times. He brings a plane or the helicopter. He brings the generator, and then he brings. I know, but it was just like, it felt like such a throwaway. Like they just kind of shoehorned somebody in. I didn't really understand.
She's got to get her gear from somewhere, right?
No, I know, but it just
Rob. He's the MacGuffin that all of us thought was. Basically, he's in the movie to think, oh, he's Taskmaster. This character, because when he first cast, we're like, oh, that's Taskmaster. That's because he's the only guy in this film that was.
You thought he was Taskmaster?
Sorry. Yeah, see, I never once.
So in the beginning, when the first was cast, you're like, oh, and then Taskmaster, you see that's Taskmaster. So it was just kind of a red herring thrown in there that threw the scent off. That guess what? It was completely someone different. Although my wife knew the moment that, and without knowing any trailers ever, she noticed that Taskmaster's a woman. I was like, what? And she knew in the moment that she fell down and fought. I'm like, okay, cool. But yeah, it was the red herring just to throw people off the scent. It's like, this is Rick Mason. So, but yeah, he's just, to Andre's point, a fixer in the Marvel universe, and someone's got to get their gear or someone off the books. And this is the person that you go to. He can be kind of the inner thread of all these other shows where he shows up. He's like, oh, you need something? I got you. So what could that be? Who knows?
So I those are all the points I had taken. I just want to say though that I think that this movie is a good action movie. Is it a great Marvel movie? No. Is it a poor and shitty Marvel movie? Definitely not. This is kind of like the little cousin to Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I feel that this movie plays catch up. I think that they should have released this movie. First of all, the movie should have been filmed way before when it was. They were playing catch up to Wonder Woman. They shouldn't have. Scarlett Johansson could have carried this movie. As an espionage movie, this doesn't hold up very well. I think the plot is a little bit wonky at times. It relies too much on the other characters to do some of the lifting. Even Scarlett Johansson, like Andre had mentioned earlier about how you see her in Falcon the Winter Soldier. This is almost like a pale comparison to her portrayal of Black Widow from that movie. Of Captain America: Winter Soldier. And I really wish that they had filmed this movie and released it after Civil War. Like, I just feel that this movie is constantly playing catch up. And I don't understand why, because all the elements were there to have made it like on par with Winter Soldier. It just isn't. And that's okay. Not everything's going to be. But it's a good action movie. And this is where it goes back to, like, this is a good movie that you can throw on, you can enjoy. It's an action movie. You don't need to have the pre-knowledge necessarily of everything that happens in the Marvel universe beforehand. This is it's individual movie. There are no stakes in the game though. In this, what Black Widow's fate is going to be. So you're not really concerned about whether or not, anything happens to her. Where I think it does fail is that if they want Yelena or Florence Pugh to be the new Black Widow, I felt that there was a lack of stakes involving her. Like, you ought to be caring more about what happens to her because you're hoping and you would like her to be the new Black Widow. And you don't have that. You don't have that. Oh my God, are they going to kill her off? Like, this could be crazy. There was not. It was void of this big, nail biter, like wanting to know, right?
Well,
so
it's the nature of a prequel when you know what's going to happen. The fact that Black Widow, we know she dies a certain way. So what is the point? Like, we knew.
But that's what I'm saying though. But then you have to make Yelena. The stakes have to be against her. That you hope that she survives because. Listen, we've all, during numerous podcasts, and we've all talked about this, we're always like, oh yeah, we know that she's going to be appearing in Hawkeye, the TV series. We know all this stuff. We know it, but we don't know it, right? There's nothing really being confirmed. Like, it's all been, really at the end of the day, it's purely conjecture. We just know it because of the geek sites and everything else like that. But you want it to have meaning. Like, you want to, I would have been surprised as all hell if they had killed her off in this movie. I would have been like, holy shit, like I didn't realize that this is what they were doing. And there was none of that. Like I never felt mortal danger for her as a character. And I think that's kind of where it falters.
Hey, they're like falling through the sky, and you're like, yeah, they're gonna be fine.
Now, at the end of the day, does
Point Break moment where Keanu's jumping on Johnny Utah, and I'm like, here we go. There's a Point Break homage. I'm like, it's just homaging to everything else.
Yeah, and so that's what this movie really relies on, is a lot of homages to other things. Now, is this worth your $40 in Canada? Because it's $35 for Disney Plus Premium. If you don't really care, like you don't need to be a Marvel fan to see this movie, but you also don't need to see this movie if you are a huge Marvel fan. Like this has no stakes. So if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, you can easily wait until October. It will be out, I think, the second week of October on Disney Plus, free for everybody if you're a subscriber. Definitely wait. If you are dying to get into a theater and you can't wait and there's nothing else really out next weekend in Ontario when they open up, go ahead, check this movie out. You will probably enjoy it more in the theater than you do at home. I am going to rewatch this movie for sure. I think I will enjoy it more on my second viewing. But for me, as a consumer who $40, listen, $40 is not an insignificant amount of money. And was it worth my investment? I'm not really too sure. I'm glad I have it, but I probably, honestly, guys, I probably would have waited until October to see it because it doesn't.
But what about the fact that it's not a rental and you have unlimited access to it till like starting like yesterday or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know what though? Like, okay, so those rentals have been between $20 to $25. Mm-hmm. I can accept that to seeing a movie.
But you get like 2 days, so you could rewatch this next week if you wanted, and the week after.
But will I? But this is the point. It's like, will I? Like, I kind of feel more burned about the $40 than I would about $25. You know, like, hey, listen, I'm going to watch it again. I'm not rushing out after this show is over to kind of continue to watch it again. I will watch it again, but knowing that it's going to be coming out in 3 months on Disney Plus is what I'm saying. I can wait. Right, I could have waited. So,
all right, Andre, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I think like Rob really touched on some moments, and I want to hope that it was intentional that they were paying homage to these other movies, because if it's not, then this is borderline like what do you call it when you just copy somebody's homework? You know,
plagiarizing.
Plagiarizing. It's unoriginal, and I want to say this, like John said it, Scarlett Johansson's been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe since Iron Man 2. If any character deserves an actual, like, really well done, thought out movie, it's her. And if she's the one character that didn't need to die and she could still be in these movies and she's not, you got to give her an amazing send-off, and this movie was not it. It was a good movie. I will say it is worth your $40, but again, on a premise on the, do you want to watch something? Are you into Marvel, or do you have a nice setup and you can't wait to go to the theater? But is it theater worthy? Definitely. If you're going to wait, as we said, we're in Ontario, so you might have to wait a week. I would say, yeah, it is worth your $20 in a theater. But it's not what it could have been very, very easily. This easily could have been one of those Marvel movies that people talk about and go, oh my God, I did not expect that from a Marvel movie, right? And so I'll talk a little bit about where I think the movie definitely has a couple points where it doesn't jump the shark, but it totally changes the pace, and it totally changes on what you're what you're thinking you're getting. The beginning, the opening scenes, heart-wrenching. That was amazing. It was like The Americans, as Rob said, and I'm like, yo, this is cool. They're going to get into some of what the Marvel universe was, with this whole like kind of Cold War and espionage thing. And I'm like, yo, that's fantastic. It's serious. Like David Arbor there, and I think, was that Rachel Weisz just de-aged at the beginning?
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, yo, this is good. And at the beginning, I'm gonna say, I thought Scarlet Witch was the younger sister, because I almost thought that was a boy with the blue hair or whatever. I'm like, oh, but then I'm like, okay, so that, I'm like, yo, that's really cool. Then they get to Cuba, and it's like, oh, I'm like, whoa, she pulls the gun. I'm like, yo, this is getting serious. And then I think after that, like there's another one scene, and to me it just kind of the switch is flipped, right? And then all of a sudden it's more humorous and stuff like that. Then you get this really awesome, assassination protocol with you're seeing the other widows in action. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's going back. Maybe they're doing something. I'm like, okay, pretty decent fight. And then again, it switches when we've got the we talked about the guy, the fixer and stuff like that. And then there's just too much comedy interjected. And then when you get this very serious reveal of the Red Room is still operating, and she meets her sister, and her sister's like, you never came to look for me. That should have been the moment where we see Scarlett Johansson act. She should have had some type of I'm so sorry, or I couldn't do it because I couldn't face you. That part of my life I wanted to forget. That was so true. Like, let me see this torn and damaged person being like, oh shit, I just thought you were out. I didn't think anything of you, but I also couldn't think of you because it's too traumatic. I couldn't process that information, right? And we do kind of get that scene, but it's this whole comedy in this farmhouse with a pig, and the guy pulling on his old shirt and stuff. And to me, again, if they had just made this movie serious, think of the gravitas that would have been. You could have had four people in a room that can't meet eye to eye because they've done nothing to reconnect with each other, because that 3 years of their life was fiction, but it was the best fiction. It was the best part of their lives that they had known, right? And I think because they switched the tone of it, it is a disservice to the quality of the subject matter. This guy, the villain, is making basically programmed female assassin units, and he has been doing it. That's serious. That's not making artificial intelligence. That's not making a super soldier who almost has free will. This is a serious, and maybe they thought, oh, it's too serious for a Marvel movie, we can't do that. And thus that's why I feel like they did a disservice, to not only Black Widow but her origin and her character, because I think she could have pulled it off, and she could have left by the end of it, maybe her realizing, like she says, oh, I have two families. But that doesn't line up with the character that sacrifices herself at the end of Infinity War, because that character sacrificed herself because she had nothing. The end of this one, she's like, oh, I didn't have any family, now I have two, and all these sisters and all this stuff. So I'm like, where are you getting at? To me, she has more to live for, right? If Clint wanted to sacrifice himself because he did some horrible shit, go for it, dude. You know what I mean? But she's got something. Also, all the buildup, of, oh, let's not talk about Budapest and all this stuff. And I'm like, hold on a second. You're upset that you blew up a dude who had done this evil thing, and the collateral damage was his daughter, even though he's killed and maimed all these people. Why are you feeling bad about that? They should be high-fiving every time they talk about Budapest. Yo, we did something great for the world, So I think it really belittled the whole Budapest reveal. And I guess the last thing I want to see is, like, on that note, it's like, yeah, all her training would have said get a body, check a body, or whatever. And then what they did to Taskmaster. Why did they even bother calling the person Taskmaster? Why did everything have to be so tied up neatly? Why did it have to be his daughter? How the hell would the daughter have survived the explosion? Like that, it looked pretty damn clear that thing went off 2 seconds away. I thought that was just a lame reveal. I would have rather it had been an android if they were going to do something, but they didn't need to call it Taskmaster. No explanation. Oh, I put a robot chip in the base of her neck and it's my daughter, or whatever. I just thought, like, when Marvel goes, they want to introduce characters into their mythos and into their movies. And they kind of did the same thing with the Ghost in Ant-Man 2. But at least that origin of the Ghost, I thought, was, at least kind of creative, whereas this one I was just like, it's nothing close to what Taskmaster is and whatnot. And I guess it really sounds like I didn't enjoy a lot of it. I did, and maybe I should focus a little bit more on that. But yeah, the last thing I want to say is the whole, oh, I've got pheromones that protect me from you doing them. Oh, so if I'm 15 feet away and I'm an assassin with wrist blasters or bullets,
I could shoot you.
I could have just shot you in the face. Or I've got this whole change my identity mask, but I can't put like a rebreather in my nose. And they knew it. She literally says while they plan it, her mother, Rachel Weisz, says, oh, hey, once you get close to him, you're not going to be able to do anything. Okay, well, why not bring a grenade in there? Like, I think it was a disservice to, again, Scarlett Johansson. That guy needed to pay for what he had done to her, needed to pay for what he had done to all those people. And she needed to be the hand of justice to do that. And the fact that she doesn't get to do that, or doesn't, play, doesn't even really get a good hit in on him or whatever, it just feels, again, it feels
You're
let
robbed.
down. Yeah,
you get robbed of it.
You get robbed of it. And she, like, again, that needed, I would rather her have beaten the shit out of this guy and then be like, I'm not that person anymore, but I couldn't contain myself. And just the whole scene with her sister dropping the staff in there and blowing up the thing, and then why'd she have to be, she could have just chucked the thing and jumped off. Like, so a lot of this stuff,
She wanted a cool way to die. That was her thing.
She kept saying that or whatever, right? So anyways, I think this movie should have been a lot more grounded, and to be that spy thriller, to be that operating in the dark. Like, this guy says, oh, I've got all these agents around the world and blah 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 blah, and they're all dressed in this hyper wicked combat armor and running around Budapest shooting up people, like driving a tank. How subtle are you, motherfucker? Pardon my French, sorry. How subtle is that? Like, and then, like you said, Shield or
that thing went
agents,
fast,
or any other agencies or armies around the world wouldn't find or be like, to me, the whole point of the Widow program is this subtle assassinations. You're getting out, you're spying and all that. None of that was subtle. And like you said, a big flying fortress in the sky. So
Yeah.
was it trying to be the hokey Dr. Evil thing, or was it trying to be this grounded thing? I don't know. I just feel that she deserved a better script and a better thing. I think Marvel could have put up better. There are better Black Widow stories in comics and all that stuff that does not get into all of that. So I'm not sure who wrote it, but maybe, or
to be fair,
the group of people who wrote it.
She was an executive producer, so you better believe that she had her hand. She chose the director. She reached out to the director after she declined it to say, I want you to direct this film, regardless of whether, her prestige history was like Kate Shortland, whether it was the right choice or not. Scarlett Johansson got to basically do a lot of the heavy lifting. She got to choose who she wanted. She got to pick who she wanted.
For sure. And she should be very happy.
And she should
about
be
it.
very proud of
Yeah.
what she produced.
Yeah, no, definitely. And
Like,
if this is the movie,
maybe it was
she
just too
wanted,
late. Maybe they should have given it to her earlier.
Yeah,
I think, this is a good action movie. Like, it is a good action movie. We are being a bit more critical because it's a Marvel movie. I think that's the distinction.
definitely. And also too, maybe because she doesn't get to be in all the bombastic scenes. Maybe she said, no, I want my bombastic movie. So if they were writing it, she said, yeah, blow more shit up, more ridiculous stuff, because the stuff that she usually does was more thing. But I think, like,
it's rough, Andre. To your point, the CGI portion on Act 3 really took me out of the movie, because I'm like, oh, that's not Scarlett Johansson. That's like CGI Scarlett Johansson. And a lot of it was just like, okay, all right, like, you went from, I see Scarlett Johansson for 2/3 of the movie, I know who she is, to like all of a sudden it's CGI with the whole flying cloud city. And it's just like, this is, I guess, what you wanted, but is this, I don't know. It didn't really make sense to me. It was like, you could just put someone on a green screen but it was constantly just all that whole fight sequence, even with Taskmaster on, all the different flying platform, was, you saw it was just CGI. I'm like, great. It was kind of like in Black Panther when Black Panther and they were fighting on the train. I'm like, oh, these aren't even real people. These are all CGI, and it just takes you out of a movie when you're like, you
At
really
least those
know.
guys had masks though.
Yeah.
You
They
know
tried
what?
their best, but yeah.
You know what I think? I think that this movie tried, you know, we've all said it. It tried to hit so many points and be so many different things. I wondered if they had removed the Red Guardian aspect, like David Harbour, as much as fun as he was, we don't really need him. He doesn't really. He adds
What did
some
he do?
comedic tone, but in all fairness, Yelena from Florence Pugh brought some of the comedy, her sarcasm.
Yeah.
So you don't need the Red Guardian stuff. You don't
didn't
need the stuff
Iron
with
Maiden
her.
either. You didn't need like Rachel Weisz. Like she.
No,
didn't
you exactly.
was
You don't
barely in the
really
movie.
need. Yeah, you don't need them as either. If you wanted to use them at the beginning and set them up for things to come in the future Black Widow movies with Yelena or whatever, then that's great. You know, you drop your Superman, you know, with Zod and everybody else, you drop them in the first part of this first movie, and then you don't see them until episode, you know, movie number 2, right? So you could have done that with those characters. I think that this movie might have been a lot more tighter had it been strictly Johansson and Florence Pugh in their characters trying to take down the Red
But
Room.
again,
It
Yeah,
would
that
have
was some of my
made, though,
favorite stuff.
it
but
would
that's
have
sisters.
made though that if you and then you you make the
yeah,
stakes.
but again,
the bad
Scarlett
guy
Johansson
higher.
probably wanted to act with them, so it doesn't matter what we think. It's like she probably had the opportunity to cut them out.
No, but I'm
you
just
know
I
what
know, but I'm
saying,
just saying
Warren?
if
These
you
actors.
look at this movie though, if you were to actually remove some of those elements and then you heighten the bad guy, Ray Winston, I think it was, whatever, and you make it more like you're more enraptured by what he's doing and his idea of conquest is real. Like you're like, oh my God, I can, you know, then at that point you now have you elevated that movie to be as close to Winter Soldier as you
But again,
possibly can.
Maybe she
right?
didn't want Winter Soldier. Again, you can't
No, I get
imagine
it,
what
but
her this is her swan song. So she wants to do what she wants to do, and that's it. So she wants to hang out with David Harbour and Rachel Weisz on a set on a day, and you're like, cool. That's what half these movies are about. Just like being a good band. You hang out with people you like, good actors, and that's why people
I
come
don't know.
back
Like
to these
I
Marvel movies.
agree with part of what you're saying, but I also think that we know that there's a man in charge who kind of has a vision, and I don't know if his ship is, well, all we need to do is toss this baton to Yelena, so I don't care how else you do it. I think Feige would have more, you know, more of a direction than just, hey, this is what we want to do.
I think
I'm happy if this is what she wanted. And again, it's not to say that this was a bad movie, because you've said it yourself, Stu. We look at these things as the potential, as what they could have been. And I think I would,
but I think,
in
Andre,
my
here's
humble
the thing
opinion,
about
I would rather have been remembered for, oh damn, that's some serious, like that was a deep, you know, thing. Like she's not just this, you know, a tertiary or secondary character. She's got the spotlight, and she's got as much personality and baggage and opportunity, you know, than other characters that she's seen. Like how cool would it have been if somebody says, damn, after this movie, like I would have taken 3 Scarlett Johansson Black Widow movies over 3 Thor movies. Like she's more interesting than Thor is, or whatever. Like, and I don't think this movie would do that. Mind you, maybe it did to some people. And obviously, like Rob said, we're looking at it through a different lens because we're all comic nerds, right?
I think we're looking through it also as, yes, comic books, you can do what you want and there's no feedback. But when you have actors, directors, and people involved, they want to be involved in the process. And someone like Scarlett Johansson, Chris Evans, Tom Hiddleston, if you want to continue to work with these people, you got to give them something to do, or give them a monologue, or give them something to work on. So I feel like Kevin Feige, his biggest strength is that he's a good communicator. He works with people. We've seen the highest of highs with Winter Soldier, and he probably will, if we ask him truth serum, he probably agrees that's the best one. But the same, every single movie since has been, oh, we worked with this person, we work with that person, we bring different directors in, we let them put their opinions, we let them use their different styles, because that's what the Marvel MCU is now. It's not just one vision, one path, because again, you wouldn't get people to work with you if you're just going to say, do it my way or the highway. It's just, let's get your perspective. Everyone keeps on saying, oh, it's inclusive, I get to put my views, my opinions. Maybe we don't like them, but that's how to make a successful franchise, where you get the best actors to say, you know what, I want to be on board. Because if you are too utilitarian and say this has to be the way, everything has to be Winter Soldier, people were just thinking like, I'm good. I don't need to do these things. So I think there is truly a balance and negotiation, and Kevin Feige is doing the best job in terms of picking the right people and negotiating with them. It's like, okay, here's something that you've never done before, and I'll give you input. I'll let you kind of make a direction. So because this is the nature of Hollywood, especially for these big budget films.
Can I just bring up the end credit scene?
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, go.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to. Here's where I think I didn't. A lot of these end credit scenes, it hypes you up for the next project that it's teasing, right? I felt that it didn't have that, and I was wondering why I felt it was it felt really flat to me. And the more I thought about it, I was like, this movie was supposed to come out before Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV series.
Yep.
And I think it would have had more gravitas had that happened, because this kind of felt like the end of Iron Man 1, where Nick Fury kind of, drops in and it's like, hey, I want to talk about the Avengers Initiative. This is, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character. And she's, she's like, hey, here's the guy that really, killed your sister. And it's a horrible photo of Jeremy Renner. I mean, they picked the worst one they could find. He looked like he was 90. But I would have liked to have had, there was like no score behind it. It just felt very flat. But I think if you were to look at that, you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you see how she shows up at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, what then becomes Captain America and Winter Soldier. And you see how, she's talking to John Walker. You're like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, I actually think that this scene, it got sucked out, that the air got sucked out of it because of the lack of excitement building upon the next one.
To be fair, this is only happening to us real time. Now that this movie is out and you could watch it for the future generations, the people that are watching it in canonical order, it will make sense for them because they have everything now out and they can watch it in the order that it's supposed to be in, and they'll be fine.
I don't know.
You could replay. Technically, I'd be interested to find out where you put this movie in. Like if you rewatched it,
it's like right between Civil War and Infinity War.
So now when you watch it, you replace this film, even though it's the 20 whatever Marvel film. Now you actually have to replace it into the other ones. It's kind of did appeal to Indiana Jones because, as we all know,
right?
Maybe John didn't know that the second movie is actually a prequel. So it's been done before. John, did you know this?
But let's talk about the. Oh,
do you know this, John? That the second movie.
Which one was supposed to be? Which one's supposed to be prequel?
No,
Temple of Doom. The second movie is a prequel to Raiders.
Haven't seen it.
Okay. Okay. Yep.
All so right. let's talk about the end credit scene. So legit, I had forgotten that she was supposed to be in this movie, and I see the end credit scene.
Yeah.
So I think what Rob is saying, I think they should have cut that end credit scene out because it doesn't tell us who the character is, doesn't give us any backstory. I was expecting her to actually be in this movie.
Yep.
Now, what this tells me is you have this character who we don't know who she is, and she never wanted to go and get this Black Widow person before. Like, how many of these?
She's already working for her. That's what established. It's already working.
Thank you. I did pick that out.
She's like, but I'm on vacation. You're not.
She's on vacation, yes, and what blah blah blah. But then it's just like, I guess what I'm saying is, after all this stuff happens to her, I got the impression she's going to stick with her sisters, right? She says she wants to get a dog. She wants to buy her own clothes, all of this stuff. Who is this Val that could convince her to go back into the old family business? And if she is going to get back into the old family business, you think she would be now smart enough to say, okay, give me the data. Because if she could just show her a picture of Hawkeye with no other context and say, yeah, this is the person that's responsible, she should sure as hell know that Clint and Natasha had a relationship. They knew each other, and maybe there's more to the story. So maybe that'll be played out, but they
mentioned it.
That she's going to go and assassinate this guy. To your point,
in the movie, Natasha didn't even tell her anything. She was like, oh, like that was the point you talked about Budapest. It's like, it's a complete, like, she didn't talk about Hawkeye at all. It's like, oh,
no, but you,
for like
again,
4 days.
I thought she said they hit an event for days or something like that.
But she left all the important, like the dialogue was like, oh, we're here at an event. Oh, we're like, oh, there's some arrows and stuff in the wall. She didn't even tell her that Hawkeye didn't know that the kid was there.
But Stu, this is also Like, we don't know after, because this movie is the first time they get in contact. Now that they're saved, maybe they do start talking to each other and have dialogues. Maybe they email each other or whatever. We don't know. And I know this thing. All I'm saying is, like, Rob, I believe that that was a lame setup for
the Hawkeye TV show.
For the Hawkeye TV show or whatever. And if they're just going to kind of put her in as quasi this villain, because again, as a comic book guy, she is not Yelena. How do you pronounce her name? Yelena is not anywhere close to what she is in the comic books, right?
Well, all the MCU characters are not anywhere.
So for her to be good out of the gate, and then they're trying to switch. Anyways,
I'd be surprised, Andre, if they get a character like directly as the comics, because every character they've done has been completely different. They've tried
not completely different. Some are closer than others. We've talked about this before, but anyways, I just think it was just not a very good scene.
I'm fine with it. Like, it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's leading to a TV show. Great. Disney Plus. The synergy is there. You know, I was, you know, the joke I made was that it was weird. Like, I called it on the last one. I was going to be disappointed no matter what happened with Taskmaster. And the moment they had the Gundam, like, Roku red eye just blowing back and forth, I was like, this is stupid. Like, the fact that it was cybernetics. Like, I really like Taskmaster, for those who don't know, is just like a regular person who has a photographic memory and just a regular human. And he's kind of teetering between the gray zone. Sometimes he'll teach the Avengers how to fight. Sometimes he's working for the Masters of Evil. Like, he's kind of always all over the place.
He's a mercenary.
He's a gray zone mercenary. And that's what's the cool part about him, is that he can go back and forth. I don't mind they gender bend it, fine, back and forth. But to make it like cybernetically enhanced, I'm like, well, then that just takes away from that. He's just a regular human. It's like, that's the cool part about Taskmaster. He's not augmented in any shape or form. He's just a regular person who just is really good at fighting. That's the key.
You know what though? Like, this really, you're right, Stu, because Marvel has a history or a big glaring issue of not treating their bad guys properly.
Yep. 100%.
And this is a character. First of all, he looked cool. It looked cool, right? Taskmaster, I thought, looked pretty cool, like the costumes of that. I would have liked to have seen the hood drop up. I mean, the hoods of the, you know, it was first of all neatly pressed, not a wrinkle at all.
Yep.
But this is a character that you could have had showing up in later movies or whatever. Like, I really wish, like, it felt like such a throwaway, and it just kind of, it's shitty.
You didn't even need Taskmaster in this movie. And it was just like, it was just, again, a MacGuffin. It's like, here's the villain of the week. And really it's Dreykov. And the fact that, you know, they're pulling back so much of it, because Loki mentions it in the Avengers. It's like, oh, Dreykov's daughter. And you're like, it's all a build up to this. And Budapest was like a letdown. Like, the whole, like, oh, then the context, if you think about it again, you're like, oh, this is like Budapest. And you're like, we have different memories. I'm like, what did the giant alien invasion have to do anything with Budapest now that you've seen Black Widow the movie?
Good point.
Wait, what did this have to do with anything? It's like, she's in the streets fighting people. It's like, it reminds me of Budapest. I'm like, how? You're so vague. Like, they just kind of glossed over that. And I'm like, oy vey. Like, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, well, why do you even mention it? Why even go to Budapest? Just leave it.
I think it was because they were in what was it? In the industrial area, it was all covered. I think that's why he was kind of saying, but you're right. I mean, it was just, I want to know if you've built up a half dozen movies mentioning Budapest and everything else of that. Then show us what that was.
Yeah.
Like,
what they did, it was just
that was a bigger letdown.
No, but I know they did on it. What I'm saying is that make it something. Right?
But
this is akin to a fart in the wind. It was just like,
in a way,
maybe
they should never have showed us, because that's the thing. They kept mentioning it.
Yeah,
and like you said, this is like Budapest. Well, yeah, maybe that could have just been their throwaway line, like, I have a bad feeling about this, or never tell me the odds. If that they just would say that, and it was kind of their little inside joke. But now that we've seen it, they're like,
what was it?
I know. So now when you go back and watch those movies, you're like, oh, who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
The kid walks in, they blow it up. I'm like, how does that have to do with an alien invasion? It's like, that's what Budapest was, like, the ledger of red. And I'm like, okay. The Black Widow program was a complete wash. It just like, oh, they're all mind controlled. Great. Like, that's also, Andre, to your point, lazy writing. It's like, oh, they're just thing. And then the red smoke that clears them, and then she blew a bomb. But I'm pretty sure that, chemically speaking, when you throw a bomb, it evaporates all things. Like the fire would just kill.
Well, that was a smoke grenade, right? Wasn't that supposed to be a smoke grenade originally?
I thought it was.
So then I was
I like how it blew up, but there were still vials on the floor.
Conveniently a canister was just left alone. I'm like, again, so much as
it was on the outside.
Lazy writing. I'm just like, the third act was such. It was like I'm Legend. It was like all the movies that like same thing. It was an I Am Legend. Like the first 2 acts, I'm like, I like this movie, and the third act was, I'm like, oi, like this is the worst.
She found the vial the same way that Baron Zemo found the extra vial.
Well, Captain America found it.
Captain America found it. Yeah,
at least U.S. Soldier. It's like, oh, I guess there's synergy with that. So there's a lot of things in that movie where just sat there going, okay, like I get it, it's fine. Like it truly is fine. Okay, I just wanted to mention those points because okay, so to your point, any other final unanswered questions before we move on? Because those were some of mine that I'm just sitting there going, like, come on, this is.
You know what was a pretty big question, or not question? I'm like, okay, so you put what's his name, Red Guardian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You put Red Guardian in prison.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mention for what.
Yep.
This guy smashed down doors, beat down people. Like, what prison would hold him? You know what I mean?
I think
like
he chose to be in prison, but yeah.
He chose? They said that?
No,
he
he's
couldn't
like
get out of that
there
winter mountain area.
He put in
What's
the
the point
seventh
of
ring
breaking out?
the seventh ring. I think it's supposed to represent the 7 rings of hell. So that was the like, even if he got there, like it's freezing cold, he was nowhere for him to go. So it's kind of like,
but again, at the same time, like again, depending on what the characters, and maybe he did try, and we don't know, but he could have always tried to steal a vehicle or. Anyways, I just thought that it's kind of for characters.
To your point, Andre, the super soldier formula for him was basically he's just strong. Because he couldn't jump he didn't really jump as high. He was okay, but
he was okay. Could you imagine if he stayed in shape though? We're also seeing him not as like he hung on to a plane and shot a gun and apparently flew and could open the plane again. Anyways, I just think that was a little bit lame. I know they needed to find him there or something, but
I would have been happy if it wasn't Red Guardian. If he was just a dad, he's an agent within the Russian KGB. You don't need to have him have these because.
But you need the redeeming moment where he's fighting. You need someone to deal with Taskmaster at the third act because no one else was going to do it.
But did he?
The rest of
he got his ass trounced.
He got trounced.
He grabbed the shield.
He needed someone to do that while
I guess that's
the other people were doing their side mission, right? Because Yelena was like, "I got to free the Black Widows." Iron Maiden was like, "I got to take this thing down," and the Black Widow's too busy dealing with Dreykov. So it's like, well, who's gonna fight Taskmaster?
And I like how their plan is so convoluted. Oh, I got to get here and do the landing procedure so that we can expose this guy. Or I could just blow up one of the engines by shooting a grenade in it. And what authority are you taking this guy to? You know what I mean? Like they could have just killed him and saved a lot of CG money.
I think to your point, Scarlett Johansson wanted to go off the bang, and she wanted the rubble around here. So it's like, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna take this whole thing down with me. Might as well. Okay, so I'm gonna go on to Rob, any unanswered questions or
no?
Okay. So the baton passing, as I mentioned before, I think a lot of you have already alluded to Black Widow. So she's gonna be in more. This is probably what it is. I think they to your point, set her up to be as likable as possible because she's going to be in more movies, or she's going to be the Thunderbolts, because I think they set up Thunderbolt Ross with the cane being his third triple bypass as the Red Hulk. Right. So I think that's inevitably, if that's what's setting up the Thunderbolts with her, U.S. agent, maybe Thunderbolt Ross, and a couple, maybe Zemo. This is what's going to happen in terms of another super team doing stuff. So maybe that's what Marvel has in mind. It wouldn't be the Dark Avengers because I don't think that would be the
William Dafoe.
it wouldn't make sense because that's more of an Osborn, and once Osborn shows up in this universe, I think that's what they'll set up as he's the next after Kang, the next super bad guy, or Doom, either one. So I think Rob already answered this. Would you watch this movie again, John? Where would you watch this movie again?
Yeah, I'll definitely watch it again. Like I said, I think it was just bad timing for the movie. I think it would have hit a lot harder if it came out a year ago. And I really like the cast, Scarlett Johansson. I think she was really good in this movie. So It is a shame if this is her final project under this character, as I did really like her and Yelena's interactions as well. I definitely could have watched if this was a 6 or 8 episode Disney Plus series, I definitely would have watched the two of them. And even if it was a solo Scarlett Johansson, I think she really deserved a bit more, like Andre was saying. But yeah, I'll definitely watch it again now. I have access to it before other people who don't pay until October, so I can definitely watch it again.
Andre, will you watch it again?
Gotta get my $35 worth.
Let's say if it wasn't $35, would you rewatch it again if the money wasn't attached to it?
No.
Rob said he would. I was going to make this comment before on our stream that this is a perfect, as I joked before, YouTube clip. Like you could just clip kind of the scenes you like, and it's a better YouTube compilation than it is actually a movie. Like you could just do all the Yelena stuff and put it up there, and like people watch that. You could put all the Red Guardian stuff up there, and you're like, cool. Like even the part where they yell at him about being the Crimson Dynamo, it's like, no, not Crimson Dynamo. Like there's just you could just put all that stuff up there, and I think this is better clip for YouTube than it is a full movie. But
hey, at least we now know Crimson Dynamo exists.
I guess until it's
for better or worse.
For better or worse. It's, the Crimson. Maybe it'll be the Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark character you'd like, Andre. We'll find out.
You know what, though? I will say that I think that this movie also, unfortunately, and we've said it 1,000 times before, especially on this podcast, it should have come out a year and a bit ago. Having all those trailers, they kept dropping trailers to keep and a lot of this movie was kind of shown in those trailers. Like I didn't
remember any of them.
Yeah. No, but there's actually 6. They actually released a trailer 2 days before the movie came out. You could just take all 6 of those trailers, put them together, and you'd probably get the gist of the movie.
Okay. Is this Rob or John? I'm going to ask you. Is this in the top 5 or bottom 5 Marvel movies?
Definitely not in the bottom 5. Definitely not in the bottom 5. I don't know if it would crack my top 5. Yeah, definitely not in the bottom.
It's in the middle. Andre?
Yeah, not top 5, but not bottom 5. I would say somewhere in the middle.
Would it be like one above the bottom 5?
Maybe.
Okay. John, would it be one above the bottom 5, or is it way in the middle of the pack?
John's very confused by the question.
Okay. John, actually, if you didn't see it, he says, I got nothing. Rob, what do you got?
Yeah, it's in the middle. It's, I would say, there's 22 movies now. You're around 15 in the 13 to 15 mark.
I will be interested when we do the next review. We'll because I threw this everyone quickly. I would like to get everyone to do their ranks before Shang-Chi comes up, and I'll see where it will go. We'll have to do a ranking of that.
I think it would be in my top 10 if we expand to 10. I think it would. Just because
we're gonna do an exercise when it is one of the next podcasts. We're gonna do our rankings before Shang-Chi, and we're gonna talk about this, and we're gonna go what's going on. Okay, so as we wrap up quickly before, let's talk about Black Widow comics, because again, a lot of the movie was inspired by a lot of cool Black Widow comics. John, do you have a Black Widow comic that you could recommend for people to check out at home?
Yeah, I'm gonna go new school. I'm going with the new Kelly Thompson run on Black Widow, which was supposed to release when this movie hit. Mm-hmm. So it's unfortunate. It's kind of being a victim of the pandemic lockdown, kind of like flying past, and no one's really seen it. So that's the current run. It is available in volume 1 trade paperback. I think it's called The Ties or something like that, and it does feature Natasha in a new life where she has a husband and a kid, and we're not sure quite what the setup is. As we know from the movie, widows or whatever you want to call them can't have children, so it's an interesting plot twist. And you see a lot of the characters from the movie. So this is one time that Marvel kind of like was releasing something that would have fit. So it does have Yelena in it. It does have Bucky. It does have Hawkeye in it, and it even has a Red Guardian in it. So I definitely would recommend that. And the artwork is really dynamic with the action and things like that. I think the artist is Alina Casagrade. So a female creative team. Yeah, Casagrade. Casagrade. I'm Casagrande, whatever. I'm probably butchering her last name. So, but the art is fantastic, and it's actually a really fun read that someone can just kind of pick up and check out.
Awesome. Andre, what comic do you recommend?
I'm gonna recommend the Black Widow run. I think it came out 2016, 2017. It was written by Mark Waid, and amazing art by Chris Samney. And if you know Mark Waid's writing, this guy's all about character and putting like really good moments for the characters. And I was really kind of surprised in watching the movie, because there's this really cool scene in the comic where I think it was only like a 12-issue run, so it's a short run. I think it was either issue 11 or 12, and Natasha is fighting this character called the Headmistress, and this Headmistress has got another 6 kind of widows in training, and these widows are basically expendable, right? And she puts Natasha in this situation where she's like, you have to kill one of these 6 people. Doesn't matter which one, but if you don't, this, where I'm going to blow up the shield helicarrier type of moment. And of course, Natasha being the hero that she is, she finds another alternative. And then there's this really cool monologue, or this really cool dialogue between the two, where the Headmistress says, I'm a better fighter than you. I'm a better assassin than you. I deserve, I've beat you. I've bested you, all this stuff. And Natasha goes, she's like, no, I'm a better fighter than you, but I'm not a better assassin than you. But that's because I care. And she's like, I care about these girls that you're manipulating. And I care. And I thought there was a really great parallel in the movie, because when she's talking to Rachel Weisz's character, Rachel Weisz's character says to, how did you keep your heart? And then there's that moment where she says, well, you told me that pain only makes you stronger. And I'm like, that's such a really good character nugget to take of the character of Natasha Romanoff, like that's her driving force. So I don't know if they stole that moment particularly from that comic, but that moment in the movie made me think about that comic and that comic run. So I'd highly recommend that. That's the Black Widow run from Mark Waid was the writer, and Chris Samney, and I believe it was 2016 or 2017.
Awesome. Rob?
Well, I haven't read any really standalone Black Widow runs or whatever, but I would say that the one time she really stuck out for me was, and I know Andre's probably going to want to punch me, but Kevin Smith's Daredevil run on Guardian Devil. She makes a pretty important entrance in there, and is in it for a couple of issues dealing with Matt Murdock and questioning what the hell is going on with him. And is a bit more of a voice of reason as well. So I would definitely recommend Guardian Devil by Kevin Smith. And is it Quesada or is it
Quesada?
Quesada, yeah. Who did the art on it? It's a cool, and Black Widow's not just thrown away in that run. Like, she is almost like the voice of morality and reason for him, which is a bit of a different turn. So it was pretty cool.
Nice. Is there another spy comic book that you would recommend for the people if they really want to get into spy genre? John, do you have any recommendations?
Well, not necessarily spy genre, but of this type of strong female character that has all these ties to her past and family. I do highly recommend Greg Rucka's Lazarus under the Image imprint.
Yep.
If you're looking for a very cool character on Natasha's level, Forever Carlisle is definitely up there. One of my favorite all-time books right now.
Awesome. Andre, same thing?
Yeah, I would recommend a book called Velvet. Also an Image comic. Steve Epting, amazing art. Was it Brubaker writing that, or Rucka? John, do you remember?
I think it's Brubaker.
Yeah, Ed Brubaker writing it. And the cool thing about this, again, strong female lead, this is high espionage. It's almost basically the premise of this book is the character, to pull a James Bond parallel, she's almost introduced as kind of like the Moneypenny, the secretary type of thing, and the head agent gets murdered, like your alpha James Bond type of character, and she gets framed for this guy's murder, and it turns out that she was the head agent years ago, and she's basically been giving desk duty. But it's a fantastic run. I think it's still available at Image, from Image Comics. I don't think the hardcovers are available, but the soft covers are. So yeah, just definitely hit us up if you're interested in that. Actually, John's suggestion is fantastic too. Amazing books with not only great characters, but strong female leads and amazing plots and settings. Both of them excellent.
Rob, what do you got for us?
I'm going to go with Dynamite.
Welders?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Underwater Welder. It's a great mystery of fatherhood. I'm going to go with Dynamite's James Bond run, but specifically Benjamin Percy. did a fantastic run. I think it's about 6-issue run called Black Box. And if you're not familiar with who Benjamin Percy is, he had a fantastic run in the Rebirth Green Arrow. I think he did about 38 or 39 issues. And it was really, really good. It's probably one of my favorite Green Arrow runs. And he's an author of a bunch of different genres of books as well. So he's just and he's got this crazy deep voice. He looks like any one of us, but he's got this voice that's like 19 octaves really down low and is quite terrifying. So, but definitely I would recommend a James Bond book. It's dynamite. It's called Black Box.
And on a scale of 1 to 10 and how much you love Black Widow, Rob, when she was reciting the movie Moonraker verbatim, did you say, that's it, I love her more than life itself? Or where were you on the scale of Black Widow love?
My divorce papers are currently being drawn up with my wife, and I am off to find Natasha Romanoff.
A woman who can verbatim quote Bond movies. This is it's too much.
It's just too bad that it was Moonraker. Like, I gotta say, like,
what are you talking about? Roger Moore's the best Bond. Come on now.
Oh no!
Oh, I'm dead. Stop.
Oh, the revelations.
I think you guys got to do this James Bond podcast.
It's gonna happen. Well, once the movie comes out, we're gonna talk about it. It's whenever
it's never coming out.
Oh, it's eventually.
Shut up! It's coming out in October.
Hey, think about this. Rachel Weisz married to Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig did a movie with
Kevin Bacon,
Taskmaster, which probably was the worst Bond movie, but Daniel Craig probably put in a word in there for Olga Kalenkov or whatever, the person who was in it. She was good in her 3 minutes in this film, as opposed to probably her 30 minutes in Bond, but it is what it is. Okay, so as we're slowly wrapping up, we've already done massive things already. So any final thoughts before we log off, John?
No, pretty much. I enjoyed it. I look forward to hearing what you guys think of it. Does it crack your Marvel top 5, or is it in the bottom 5 like Stu asked? I suspect that's a small possibility.
I think it's going to be either bottom or middle for most people. I can't imagine it's going to be top 5 for many people, but I think I would be interesting to see if it's, as Andre said before, like 6th of the worst. Like, is this just the one tier above the worst 5 below?
You know what? Maybe it's not quite this. Maybe I'd have to, because there's a lot of movies, so I guess I'd have to probably.
We're gonna do the list, and you'll be surprised because you're gonna go through these.
I think, like Rob said, I think it does warrant, especially in this the fact that we didn't get to see it in theaters. You might have to get a second viewing in, because watching at home experience. I guess that's the balance of those scales. Seeing in theater, popcorn, big sound, big screen. People with you, that kind of experience versus at home on demand, I guess, is the whole debate. So I definitely do have to watch it again.
What I think is interesting, John, and you kind of alluded to it, to be honest with you, I would have rather taken 6 or 8 episodes of this movie and this plot than what we've been getting with Loki. Meaning, I find her character in this plot line way more. So would this have been better if it was a 4 or 5 hour exploration of the character and her background to leading?
Of course, it would always be better because you get more time.
Yeah, but
now that we've seen the formula,
she's a movie star. She doesn't do that.
No, I don't want that. I don't want that. Would you have preferred to have Captain America Winter Soldier movie as a 6 hour?
We kind of almost got it. Falcon and Winter Soldier had a very
you know what? This is
vibe.
I said this way before any of these movies came out. I postulated this and I asked you guys, will the inclusion of all these extra TV shows water down the Marvel experience? And the potential is higher now, as far as I'm concerned, than I thought back then. I don't. This is a problem now, right? There's two. You can now see where quality starts to kind of wane a little bit. I'd be happy with movies. Like, I'd be happy with these movies and these other TV shows that don't have to tie into things. I think it gets to be way too convoluted, and I think it becomes a problem.
But I think it could be like that right now. We haven't had a proper TV series that's on a main A-list character in order to do that. Like, I don't honestly, like, I get what you're saying. Like maybe you feel that some of the spectacle would be gone if they keep doing
Wasn't Hawkeye
TV series.
a main tier who's going to get his own TV?
No,
show?
he's not a main tier character.
You mean
Well,
like
cinematically he is.
cinematically?
No, he's not.
Yes,
Did he have
they've
his own
put- they've-
movie? He didn't have his own movie. I'm talking.
but they've-
I'm talking. You give a character like I'm not. I'm just saying,
America,
if
Thor.
there
He's
was
the
a
main
Captain
roster.
America, an Iron Man, a Thor, a Hulk. You tell me you wouldn't watch a six episode Hulk movie starring what's his name?
Mark Ruffalo?
Mark Ruffalo?
No.
Like, I don't.
Well,
know
I would watch it, but I think it would water it down. I
I
don't.
don't water it down if it's as good as or if
I
not
think this is a
better
good
on the
debate
movie.
for when Loki wraps. If
Yeah.
after
We're
we
gonna
watch
go- we're
the
gonna go
third
into it.
Marvel
This is-
show,
this
if we're
is
like
teasing,
we're
because, yeah,
sick of these Marvel shows.
next week we're gonna go full into it. So keep that on top. So all right. Any other thoughts before we log off on this movie itself? Because looks like
I just think that it's a good action movie, and I think that we have to. You asked the question: is this, when we talk about the movies in the bottom, this and that, and Marvel, you have to view it in two different aspects: as a movie in and of itself, and then as a Marvel movie, and that's where it gets to be.
Yeah, I think we all generally rated it decently high, and we are being a little bit more critical. But this also did come with it a year's worth of
there's just so
expectations
many more
and
questions that were laid out
anticipation,
in this movie that weren't answered, which is why I ding it so much. It's like when you watch Guardians, there was no predetermined like what is Guardian Galaxy. They didn't have like you have the storyline of stuff you have to quote unquote wrap up. But the moment they walked into Budapest, and then you're like, oh, this is what's you're like, oh, I guess we're never gonna get the answer for this, or it's gonna be a halvesy. So yeah. Anyways, we'll go into this more because we have 2 new movies and a couple of shows, and a whole bunch of stuff coming up. So to your point, time will tell if they're gonna be watered down or not, because they did mention they're doing a bunch more animated shows. So let's see if this is all clear, tied together in an MCU. Questions. Well, time will tell. So thank you all for joining us today. Again, support local if you can. Buy something small, buy something big. Go into Heroes World. They'll be open by the time they come out here, and they'll be opening up bigger on Friday. So again, support. Thank you all for watching, liking, subscribing. Comment below your thoughts on the movie Black Widow, and let us know your unanswered questions, thoughts, where you rank it, etc., etc., etc. So thank you so much. Have a good one. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Nanu.
Thank you, Stu.
See ya.